Welcome to World History, Unit 2, The Classical Civilizations, Lesson 4 and 5, The Fall of Rome, Part 2 and 3. Essential question: how do the greatest empires fall? Our agenda and goal statement: I will be able to describe the reasons for an empire to fall or lose their power. Let's begin. The internal problems and invasions spurred the division and decline of the Roman Empire. A century of crisis. After the Pax Romana ends in AD 180 with the death of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, there was a subsequent set of emperors that were unable to govern the giant empire. The economy of Rome weakens, and hostile tribes outside the empire disrupt trade. Inflation, which is the drop of the value of money and the rise of prices, weakens trade. Overworked soil, war-torn farmland leads to food shortages. So the crisis is there are weak leaders and they were unable to govern the giant empire. Number two, the money had lost its value and the prices were high for everything. Number three, there were food shortages. Now let's look at the military and the political turmoil. By the 3rd century AD, the Roman military had turmoil. Soldiers loyal to the commanders, not Rome, began to fight for the throne with the commanders. The government enlists the mercenaries or foreign soldiers they had to pay to fight. The average citizens lose interest in the affairs of Rome. People became apathetic. Diocletian reforms the empire. In AD 284, an emperor by the name of Diocletian restores the order and divides the empire into two. The two emperors in Greek speaking East and Latin speaking West. So one emperor goes to Greece area, the Greek area in the East, one stays in Rome in the Latin speaking area. In AD 305, Diocletian retires and the rivals compete for power. Constantine moves the capital and he becomes the emperor of the Western Empire in AD 312. He seizes the Eastern Empire in AD 324, which is 12 years later, and moves Rome's capital to Byzantium. Byzantium eventually is renamed Constantinople or the city of Constantine, and that is present day Istanbul, Turkey. Okay, so you start to see the climax of it. So let's talk about the different invasions and the reasons for the crumbling of the empire. The Germanic invasions were very important to the fall of Rome. The Mongol nomads from Asia, the Huns, invade the northern borders of the empire. Germanic tribes flee the Huns. So the Huns are coming from Asia. The Mongols are from what is Mongolia and that area. They're called the Huns, and they're going west. They're going west because remember, China has the Great Wall. They have cut off the area of the northern part of China so that the Mongols cannot attack from the north, and they need food. There's not a lot of food in that area. Okay, so they're moving west to find food, and they're attacking. As they're attacking west, the German tribes or the Germanic tribes are fleeing the Huns and they enter the Roman lands and they sack Rome in 410 AD. Attila the Hun is very important in this section when we talk about the Huns and the Mongols. Attila unites the Huns in AD 444. He plunders 70 cities in the east and he attacks Rome in 452 AD. Famine and disease prevents his victory, his overall victory. An empire is no more. The last Roman emperor falls to the Germans in 476, and this is the end of the Western Empire. But the East thrives for another 1,000 years, called the Byzantine Empire. So when you say the Byzantine Empire, remember that is Eastern Rome. The key terms and vocabulary for this section are inflation, Diocletian, mercenary, Constantinople, and Attila. Rome and the roots of the Western civilization. The Romans developed many ideas and institutions that became fundamental to the Western civilization. So Rome fell ultimately, but as you can see in this picture, this is a picture of Washington, D.C. All of these major buildings, including the Capitol building of the United States of America, looks like a building that is influenced by the architecture of ancient Rome and all of the buildings around it, as you can see. The legacy of the Greco Roman civilization is very important to Western civilization. Romans conquered Greece, which it admired its culture. The Greco-Roman culture, created from the Greek, Hellenistic, and Roman cultural elements, was very important and the roots of Western civilization. The Roman fine arts also developed bas relief sculptures to tell stories, and artists skilled in creating mosaics and painting frescoes was very important to telling the overarching stories. And if you look in this picture here to the right, this is a picture of the depiction of what was happening when the ash from the volcano eruption happened in the city of Pompeii, and it killed all of the people there, or many of the people there, and 79 AD, and it was preserved in art. This information. The Romans borrowed from the Greek philosophy and literature, and they also have many poets and writers and historians. The poet Virgil, for example, writes the epic Aeneid, which is modeled after Homer's Greek epics. The Roman historian Tacitus excels in writing factually accurate history. The Latin language was also an official language of the Roman Catholic Church in the 1900s, but it also develops into French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, and more than half of the world's in English stem from more than half the words in English stem from Latin. So this is some of the influences of Rome, Roman culture. And so if you see a question on the test that asks, what are some of the influences of Rome? One of them is the language of Latin. The Romans were master builders, and the Romans pioneered the use of the arch, which is also used in domes, and the use of concrete. They create aqueducts, and aqueducts are structures to bring water into cities and towns. And if you look at this picture here, and I'm going to bring out my pointer, you see these are the aqueducts. The water travels along the aqueducts this way and that way and this way. Okay? All right. Math, science, and technology. These three aspects, math, science, and technology, develops Roman in the Roman is a legacy of Rome. They developed the Roman numerals. Pliny the Elder writes a collection of scientific knowledge. Galen becomes the greatest authority in medicine for centuries, and Ptolemy writes the astronomy, geography, light, music, and the Romans excel in technology, such as glassmaking, dam building, mining, sanitation, brass, soap, surgical instruments, and tooth implants. And again, you see a picture here of the Jefferson Monument in Washington, D.C., which is modeled after the Roman architecture with the domes and the columns. And you see the architecture all throughout Washington, D.C. The Roman system of law is also a legacy of Rome. Principles of the Roman law form basis of the modern legal systems. And remember, the Roman law is also modeled after ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Greeks. So these are all influences, but they still have influences today in and around the world. For example, all persons deserve equal treatment under the law. They're innocent until proven guilty. Burden of proof rests with the accuser. The punishment for actions and not thoughts. Unfair laws could be set aside. So Rome's enduring influences by preserving and adding to Greek civilization, Rome strengthened the Western cultural tradition. And here again is a picture of the Library of Congress, and you see the Roman architectural influences in the design of the building. I'm going to turn off my pointer here. All right. So that concludes our section on ancient Rome or the Roman Empire and the fall of Rome. So your key terms and vocabulary include Greco-Roman culture, Pompeii, Virgil, Tacitus, and aqueduct.